Hi Heidi, this is Brooke Niblett, and I do not have internet at my house, so I was having a really hard time trying to make a screencast or other items like in Starbucks, so I hope that it's okay that I'm just recording myself, and then I'm going to try to email it to you to explain the Tomlinson model for that part of the course. So I'm just going to get started. So the first thing to know about the Tomlinson model is that pre-assessment is the key to understanding the students and meeting their needs. The whole point of differentiation, according to this model, is to meet students' needs, and in order to figure out their needs, you have to do pre-assessment. To figure out their prior knowledge of your content, but also their learning profiles. And some different ways that we've learned to do that is through word splashes or wordles. But I like to think of it could be just as simple as doing a pre-assessment of the content that you're teaching, like the old school pre-test type thing. I currently do that in my general music class. So the overarching goal is to meet and understand student needs. There are three things or what's, as it's been described in the course, to differentiate, and each of those what's can be differentiated in three different ways. So 3 times 3 is 9. So that's why altogether we've learned 9 different ways to differentiate. The first one is differentiating by learning profile. And learning profile are the different ways to intake and process new information. So if we're differentiating, the three things you can differentiate is the content, the process, and the product. So that's that first level of the model, I believe, if you're looking at it. The content is the actual what you're teaching. The process is the way that you're teaching it. And the product is, I like to think of it as, that's the assessment, that's the thing that they're creating, or the assessment that they're taking to show what they've learned. So if you're differentiating the content by learning profile, some examples include, this is the stuff that you're using to teach them. So if you want to differentiate it, you can use text. Some students can be using charts. You can use audio, movie clips. I mean, I could even take videos of myself like this, and that would be kind of changing the content or how I'm teaching the content. Interviews, and then also if you're differentiating the process by the learning profile, this is the different instructional strategies you'd be using. So you might do some hands-on activities, group work versus individual work. Some students may be working individually, some students may be working in partners. That's some examples for that. And then the product by the learning profile would be, one thing that I'm really going to use in my classroom is allowing students to like creating different final products to show the mastery of the content. As long as they're still able to show the mastery in a different product, there's no reason why they can't. So one student may create an essay while another may write a song, or another may make a model, and that's something I really want to start doing in my class. So I just talked about differentiating by learning profile, and now I'm going on to differentiating by interest, because that's the second area. And so when you're differentiating the content, by interest, they talked about 2 different areas. So you could do it one way where within the content, you could make someone an expert of one area within it. And so we talked about centers or the I search. I really want to incorporate centers and let kids really dive into a particular area of a genre of music or something, so that they can really become that expert. And I like to use that terminology too, to call them that, because they take a sense of ownership. Or by interest, you can focus outside the content. I have a lot of students, because of how my school does the unified arts, they don't ask students what class they want to take, what unified arts they want to take at all. So I have kids thrown into music class that, quite frankly, don't want to learn music. They don't care about music. They don't know why they're thrown in there. And so I think this would really benefit me if I differentiate and focus outside the content and try to make some connections between music and the things they already love, such as sports or something like that. So that would be nice too, if I could give them a project where they can become an expert of something outside the content but still kind of make those connections. If you're differentiating by interest, the process by interest, this is when you could use those centers or the I search, and you're changing up the process rather than just doing lecture based on their interest. If a kid wants to learn about a certain aspect of music, go and let them, focus on that rather than focusing on like the broad aspect of it. If some students want to create musical compositions rather than learning all about the history, let some students learn about that rather than that, and have like different centers for that. I really want to do that. And then differentiating the product by interest. This means that also within those areas of interest, kind of like what I was just saying, they're all kind of interrelated, but with the product, for example, my general music class has a music theory project almost at the end of every unit, and I could have them decide like what genre of music they're going to write about with their composition based on their interest, based upon which one they liked the best, rather than having every student do it with every single genre. And the last area is readiness, and this is the part that talks about how ready a student is to be independent in learning. And this, in my opinion, is the most important, because I'm always trying to teach kids to teach themselves and work for themselves for multiple reasons. One being that I feel like that's our number one job as a teacher, is to get them ready so that they can take care of themselves, and especially my students in my area that I teach in. They're already at home taking care of themselves because their parents are working all the time, working weird hours, late hours, and they're already taking care of themselves and their siblings in some cases. So I think this is so important that we teach them to be independent. And also, quite frankly, it makes our job easier, because if I have all my students like teaching themselves, working themselves, I can kind of take a breather, and that's really, really beneficial. But anyway, if you're differentiating the content by readiness, this is when you can give some leveled text, which I really want to try this myself. It'll take me some time to do some research, but I usually make all my students read the same article about the same composer or something, but it's easy to find different articles written in different reading levels, because my kids, a lot of them truly can't read even though they're middle school, and I think that this would be really beneficial, and also give some really more rigorous, difficult text for those green students or the gold students or the students who really do love to read and want to learn more. Go ahead and give them a harder article. I could even whip out some college things that I pulled out. Some students would actually really love that and be privileged by that. Differentiating the process itself. This is when you can make those tiered assignments, or compacting and contracts. I really, really am going to start doing that this year with my superstar students in chorus who learn a song like that. And there's an importance of repeating and rehearsal and having them keep singing it over and over again. And we're a team. I talk about being a team a lot, and we need everyone working together. But some of my girls are at the point where they're just way above and beyond, and they get bored. We're rehearsing the same part over because they're like, I get it now, I get it. And so I really want to start compacting so that the process for their readiness, if they're super independent, let them go in a practice room and work on some foreign language solo song. So that's what I'm going to start doing with that. And then differentiating the product by readiness. This is, you could make different tests, and I really should start doing this, especially in my general music class. Have the different tests for, the different, by the end of a unit if a kid gets it or not, and if they're able to do a free response the way that you've written it. Which kids, this kid's not going to be able to do this, but this kid will. And usually I just end up grading like really, really lax for the kids that I know won't be able to do well. But why not just formulate them a different test that they will do well and they know that they do well? So I really want to try to do that. Okay, so I think I covered all the areas. Just want to reiterate that there are 3 things that you can differentiate, and that's the content, the process, and the product. And that you differentiate it by readiness, by learning profile, and by interest. And you really need all 3 of those things. And in order for them to be motivated in the classroom above anything else. I know that the main goal of this course was talking about just getting it so that all students can be successful, but I think a lot of it also has to do with motivation, that once the kids know they can be successful, they will be more motivated to do it. And also having high expectations. That's something that I've done a pretty good job at teaching, and some of my students in my general music are like, you expect us to do more than in our English class, and I'm like, well, that's a problem that your English class isn't that rigorous. So I just have super high expectations. I'm going to keep doing that, and I've really learned a lot in this course, and I waited until the very last minute to do this assignment because I wanted to do all the other assignments before I did this talk. And I also just wanted to thank you so much for the course. I really did enjoy it, and it just kind of reminded me of things I already knew, but also took it to the next level of how I can reach all my students. So that's the Tomlinson model. Thanks.